Howdy folks, this is Checkers back again with another Rambling with Checkers, and we are once more back out in the glowing sea, actually picking up right where we left off. And I thought we would continue our explorations of the Commonwealth Wasteland's wasteland and see what we can find out here. We just found a structure, and well, let's see what else we can find. And I'm stubbornly refusing to use the map just to see what we can run into on our own. We're using spray and pray at the moment, well, because it is incredibly easy and kind of fun too. And I had someone ask me between rambles at some point what my most memorable experience was, and I've actually seen some really strange things, been through some really strange things. Some of them, well, probably not quite ready to talk about. Some of them I don't mind quite so much. Well, look at this. I think I've been here before, but I'm not. Look at the kind of like heat mirage going on over there. Meltdown imminent? Oh, I think we're a little late for that. That sounds like a death claw. Oh, hello. One day I should try some of the various legendary weapons I have that do other sorts of damage than explosion, like fire and... Oh, there's quite a bit of radiation in here. A child of Adam with 22 bottle caps, 5 gamma rounds, a gamma gun. And... But anyway, some of the more memorable things that I can remember. Let's see. Top of my head comes a job I did in theater once. It was a dance company. And, well, there was one that, I think I told this story. Sometimes I get confused as to which stories I've told and which stories I haven't. Because I like telling stories, so I forget. As I know I've told it at some point in the past, but I don't know if this is one of those places or times or stories. But, well, here's something I don't think I've done too much of. How about theater ghost stories? Have we talked too much about theater ghost stories? They're kind of memorable, I would say. Let's see if I can remember my very first. So I worked in a theater that had a legend of a ghost. And it's strange when you work in some place like this because different things happen. Not just weird things like weird sounds, rattles, noises, sights. I remember very clearly a dancer from a touring company, one of the like Broadway touring companies, coming through, walks in the stage door, stops, looks at me and says, "You have a ghost here," turns around and goes right back out. And now, here's the thing. Every theater, almost every theater, at least every theater that I personally know of, will tell you they have a ghost. And, so that's really not, you know, that's like saying that, you know, if you walk into a grocery store, you're going to find potatoes. It's just, yeah, you know, okay. Pretty much all theaters have ghosts, you know. And I'm not saying I know what ghosts are or firmly understand any of the phenomena. I don't. But I've seen some weird things, and I've been around a lot of weird stories. So there was that dancer. I remember once personally, being up in what's called front of house, or different theaters will call it different things. APs, which stands for anti-proscenium, front of house catwalks. Basically, these are the positions that exist over the seating for the audience, and the front lights, sort of high front lights, come from there. And I used to work in there really often, especially when I was much younger, and it requires a lot of strength because you have to pull lights up on ropes and you have to pull miles of cable, especially when you're doing like Broadway touring companies. And so I would get sent up there quite a bit. And one time I was up there, more than once, but there was one specific time I remember. It was the craziest thing. I was the only person up there. Absolutely only. And the floors are made of wood, and they're not very big. You know, I mean, it's a corridor maybe 3.5 feet wide, maybe. There is only one entrance, and it's behind you, and I'm up there, and I swear I can hear footsteps on the other end of the catwalk. Now, the other end of the catwalk may be 80, 90 feet away, but, you know, there's no other way to get there. You can't get there except past me. So as I'm going back and forth, every time I switch positions, I hear footsteps. Not like, you know, vague footsteps, like someone's clomping around in heavy work boots, you know, just a few feet or, you know, maybe 20, 30 feet away from me. And so I keep going down to one side or the other to check, and there's nothing there. And I honestly can't tell you what happened there. But it was weird, and it was one of a number of very weird things that happened. I think I've already covered that my theater had an unwholesome, well, not unwholesome, I don't know, just a strangely high incidence of death in the house. Like, people would come to watch the show, and an unusually high number of people would die, and they usually died in the section where someone had taken a picture and this glowing translucent form had shown up. And again, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, ghosts are a thing. I just don't know. And personally, that's the position that I tend to hold on things that I don't understand. Like, if I don't know if a phenomenon is real or not real, I'm not going to tell you it's not real or it is real. I'm just going to tell you I don't know. Because I think that is the place from which, you know, knowledge is gained. Not the position of I know X or Y, but I don't know X or Y. Because if you're sure of one thing or another, well, then you're sure. That tends to bias your opinion on things. Ooh. Yeah, this thing's definitely got some local kickback. I really wish there was the old your explosives hurt you less skill, but there is not. So I would say that is one of the flaws of spray and pray, that if you get close up, you really should switch. Unfortunately, when things pop up on you that close, you don't really have the choice. So let's see, what other strange stories do we have? From my particular theater, interesting stuff. Nothing really concrete or super fun that I can remember offhand, and that may just be a flaw in my memory. There was another little theater that we worked at, and this one was a little special in that it had the distinct honor of being built on top of, as the legend goes, an Indian power spot, which was the confluence of 2 underground rivers and a Chinese graveyard from the, you know, building of America days. And that theater was legit creepy. And some of the best ghost stories in theater that I know of come from this place. Not all of them my own, but quite a few of them. For me, I remember one time a fellow that I was working with, and now we had been co-workers since college, since our time at the university. We were no longer in the university. We were full bore professional union stagehands, actually. And we were doing a job, and I remember I was reading a book on the lightboard, which stagehands are some of the best read people on the planet because we have a lot of time between things to read. And running a lightboard during a show, especially if you've done it for a while, if you've done the show for a while, you relatively know how long you have between the next time you need to do your job and, you know, where you are now. And so I was reading, and I was actually reading Sun Tzu's Art of War. And I remember feeling my friend, you know, I remember feeling what I thought was my friend come up and stand behind me, and like he was going to ask me a question. And, but basically the end of the act came, and it was time for us to go through our sequence, me with my lights and him with his sound. And so I turned just in time to kind of see him going in the other room. And, you know, you go through your sequence and you kind of forget that sort of thing. But, you know, intermission lasts for 15 to 20 minutes, so 15 to 20 minutes. And somewhere in that time period, he came over to my light booth and he said to me, you know, what did you want? And I said, what do you mean, what did I want? He said, well, you came into my booth, what did you want? I said, I didn't come into your booth, you came into mine, what did you want? He's like, I didn't come into your booth. Now, the trick to these booths are that the only way to get into them is from a set of stairs that leads to a door behind me on the other side of me. And I have the only set of keys other than one of the city guys, and the city guy isn't there. So, you know, we kind of write it off as, well, you know, it's probably the city guy. He came in during the middle of the show, somehow snuck by me, and we didn't realize it. So we get, you know, towards the end of the show, after everything is all over, and the city guy comes in, and we're like, hey, you know, what did you want? He's like, what are you talking about? So, well, you came into our booths at intermission. He's like, well, no, actually, we had a big emergency over at the arena. I couldn't get over to you guys tonight. That's why I came, was to apologize. And so that one was kind of weird. Now, couple this story with another story that another close friend of mine told from the same theater, and this one made me really happy. So he's working in the theater all alone one night, wrapping up some little show, because this was one of the smaller theaters that we had available to us. I think it was like 500 seats or something, and a lot of little community productions went in there. And so he's down on stage wrapping up cable and putting away lights, and he looks up and he sees someone in the light booth, and they go from the light booth into the spot booth. So in this theater, all of these booths are connected through doorways. So he looks up and he sees that, and he's like, huh, that's weird, you know, maybe one of the other city guys is here. And he keeps wrapping his cable, and after a few more minutes, he looks up and he sees somebody go from the spot booth into the sound booth. And he's like, okay, you know what? Nobody's answering on the radio, and nobody should be up there. So he gets out his keys. He goes to the door that leads to these booths, and he basically unlocks the door that leads upstairs to the booths. Okay. And then he gets to the top of the stairs and unlocks the door into the light booth. And then he gets in the light booth, no one there, unlocks the door to the spot booth. No one there, unlocks the door to the sound booth. No one there, and there's nowhere to go from there. And so he says, huh, well, that's weird. And then he goes back downstairs to keep doing his job. And he sees somebody, you know, he locks all the doors on the way down. He sees somebody go from the sound booth into the spot booth, from the spot booth into the light booth. And he said at that point, he put the cables down, left the lights on the stage, wrote incomplete on his work report for the night, and went home. And I love that story. I had another friend who was an older stagehand, much older, you know, past retirement. He had worked for the Air Force as a young man, and he was retired. And there was this room, it was sort of an L-shaped hallway. And it was just kind of went from one part of backstage to another part. And he walked through this room, and he said that when he walked through it, he had this weird feeling, like really weird around his belly. And so he went through it in the dark, because stagehands tend to walk around in the dark a lot. We get used to it. And he went back in the room, turned the lights on, and there was a 2x4 wedged about where his belly was in the room. And it was stuck there. He said it, he had to get some tools to get it out. But the thing is, it had been stuck there for a while, so he basically walked through it. And that was one of his stories. A lot of guys who had tools move, and all of this can be much of it can be attributed to other things, but some of the stories are just weird, and there is definitely a really weird vibe in this place. It is it's one of those places that when you're all by yourself, you know it. Like the instant the last person leaves, you know you're by yourself. But it was, there are a lot of really fun, well, some of them are not so fun, but there are a lot of fun theater ghost stories. And I just enjoy collecting them as I go along. Well, I did. But anyway. So those are some of my memorable theater experiences, at least in those, and I'm sure I've forgotten oh so many of them, because there really are just oh so many of them. And it's funny, it doesn't really matter how skeptical the person is, what their opinion of it is. At certain points you get into a theater and it's just strange. But yeah, sometime I'll have to try and remember to tell some of the other really crazy stories from theater, the ones that don't have anything to do with ghosts, but more the people who work in them, whether they be stagehands or professional performers. But I think we're reaching on about the end of this ramble, so maybe next time, or maybe in a future ramble. Or if you really like the ghost stories, theater ghost stories, I can try and remember some more of those. Just let me know. Looks like we've been through here before. Back at the airliner crash. There's 2 airliner crashes, if I wasn't so stubborn about using the map. But it's kind of fun to just wander. Oh, time for a treatment. Let's see, Radix, Radaway, and Stimpack. We could determine which crash was which. I will say, one of the best, haunted game experiences came from a really strange place. If you've ever played, I think it's Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, there's a haunted house in there. And, the first part of it is really, really well done. Because, just like the real world, we come to expect things to behave a certain way in games, and things are behaving in a very uncertain way. And it doesn't really matter that your character is a vampire. It's kind of like, this is weird. But okay. Is that just a wandering ghoul? I think it's time we turn our light on. No, Mr. Ghoul. Not gonna work out like that. This is sort of like the rocket launcher from old things like Quake or Unreal Tournament. It's just easy to point at the floor by their feet and deal with the problem. Spray and pray, I mean. As long as you just, don't point too close to yourself, because that leaves a mark. And a giant pyramid, which at some point in the story you may very well definitely run into. Hello, Mr. Vent. Okay. Stingwing. Yeah, that was pointing at the ground underneath him, which is kind of handy for getting those kind of critters, honestly. I mean, even with a full auto, it's a little difficult to hit them sometimes. They dodge right quickly. Yeah, gonna have to say, spray and pray, a lot of fun. I wonder how many rounds we've eaten through. Let's take a look at ammo. And, oh, about 1,000 or so. Alrighty. Okay, well, our Radex is worn off. Oh, there's a Deathclaw in the distance, just waiting to say hi. I think we have reached the end of this ramble, but of course we will be back in more rambles in the future, I'm sure, depending on how much folks enjoy them. But anyway, thanks again for walking with me through the Commonwealth Wasteland's wasteland. I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys had some amount of fun, even with the strange tales of theatrical hauntings. Mwahaha. But the experiences are true. You know, at least my first-hand experiences. And I do believe the fellows who told me their stories. I don't think they would lie. I don't know. I'm not saying I can explain what their stories are. I'm not saying that they are ghosts or not. I'm just saying that I do believe the experiences. So, yeah. Okay, guys, thanks so much. I would like to remind you that I have a Twitter link in the description of the video and on my channel main page. If you're on mobile, it'll be on my channel about page. Also, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you will see a small letter I with a white circle around it. These are cards and links to other videos that I've made. I would like to thank you for watching. I hope you found the video entertaining and maybe just a little informative. I would like to invite you to subscribe, like, and share if you so desire, and ask you to please take care.